Hello, everyone. My name is Lewis Harris. I was inspired to make the Record in Progress podcast due to the outcome of the 2024 presidential election. I was one of the ones who was surprised at the outcome and felt that I could have done more to possibly make it go a different way, but didn't really take that opportunity during the time, but I'm taking it now with Record in Progress podcast. And the purpose of the podcast is to share perspectives, stories, and narratives to create understanding and a pathway towards a unified society. So I am joined now by a friend of mine who I deeply respect and would love for her to introduce herself.
I am Courtney.
And Courtney, how do you identify yourself?
First and foremost, I identify myself as a light and a child of God. It's been on my whole life. That's the only thing I've known. I also identify as an Indigenous ginger. I'm a Muckleshoot tribal member, but I'm also citizen in Washington, Dakota. I currently live on the Muckleshoot reservation. Identify as auntie to all the children that come within like any distance of me. I'm a magnet and I just have a childlike spirit. And there's such good medicine in that connection, and a warrior for truth, advocacy, and justice in whatever realm that needs to take place. So
excellent. Thank you for being a part of this podcast and sharing some of your thoughts with the audience. So you mentioned you're a Indigenous member of the Muckleshoot tribe. You currently live where?
On the Muckleshoot reservation. And yes, I'm an enrolled member here.
Excellent. Excellent. And the next two questions are really to help listeners just understand you and try to, because our world is entrenched in the economic bits of our society. And so the next question is, what do you do?
Well, I've held many different titles and different jobs. Currently, I am a tribal scholar and I work under our tribal historian as a student. I am a full-time student at Northwest Indian College in the capstone phase of my bachelor's, with my capstone being trauma-informed care. I do have the privilege within my sovereign tribe to have an incredibly low rent where I live, because I am a combat veteran as well. Per the tribe's housing policy, wherever I live, my rent is only $1 a year. It is a luxury. It comes with balance. There are definitely things that even walking through the housing situation since I moved home that have been complex.
That's great, because you and I have had conversations in the past about how important it is for Indigenous tribe members to educate and to work within their tribes to help tribal issues. Again, many praise and thank you for the good work you're doing. The next question I have is, what is a credential that you also, thank you for your service. Don't want to forget that. What is a credential that you use most to sell yourself on job application?
Right now, the thing I'm most proud of on my resume is the published work that I have. And I had a published research project on Muckleshoot's second treaty war. We had 16 Muckleshoot tribal members that carried the Bolt decision 50 years ago, which gave all Pacific Northwest usual and accustomed treaty rights to feed their families. And that trial lasted many years and had many layers. And I worked very hard to produce the first of its kind, so we may have an accurate reporting of our history.
That's great. Yes. And obviously very important work, especially when it comes to just Indigenous practices like hunting, fishing, and the like. So let's get into the meat of the questions. How did you vote in the 2024 presidential election?
I'm going to respond with the way I responded to you, and I skimmed the question and just say, a lot of people in Indian country voted for Trump, and I was not one of them. It's touchy right now. It's happening on part of Reddit communities and other social media Indigenous groups that is trying to come to terms. And we have our own elections coming up in January. So that's where I'm trying to pull focus in our community, because we're just as broken as the Federalists.
Sure. And so I'm, again, really thankful to have an Indigenous perspective here, because I am privileged to have enough friends of Indian country to understand the issues. And here in Washington State, we are relatively in community with our Indigenous tribes here. And we do have a interesting perspective here, but it's one that I know that not everybody gets an opportunity to hear. For letting us know about that. The next question I have for you is, what are three feelings you have about the results of the 2024 presidential election?
First and foremost, I believe wholeheartedly that it was fixed. When I was in the Navy, we were extended on our deployment in 2013 after Syria gases people. Obama was like, don't do it again. And he did it again. The Russians followed us around during that time period. It was very eye-opening as the submissive action we took. Like, they had a missile launcher pointed at our ship. And that really opened my eyes to just heretics and colonial systems in general. And then I've since watched documentaries, including Putin and the presidents on PBS. And we know that Russia stole the election last time, right? For Trump. We know that for a fact. It's been proven it's not. Why would this be any different? I don't think Kamala ever stood a chance. And it's really hard to see it. If you if you understand what the federal government had done to the Indigenous people through policies and things like this to control them, you understand how easy they could make that step. And it's just, I think Putin won the election.
Okay.
Maybe that's one and two. I am happy with people like you who share, like, how can we deal with this? But there's also, I think those people, they feel a sense of hopelessness that Indigenous people have felt for a long time, right? This is the same game over and over again. The enemy doesn't have a lot of new tricks. It's going to get really, in my third view, it's going to get messy, and we just need to, really gather, organize, and lean on community and find love within where we can reach.
Absolutely. And that's hopefully what an outcome of this podcast is. And I'm a firm believer that there's more that unites us than divides us, which is a talking point on the Democrat side. But more than just a talking point, you're a being of light, spiritual child of God. And so you understand that there's an underlying truths that connects us all, right? And despite our politics, that's the bit that I'm hoping we find as our core and our base going forward, so that we can recognize what unites us rather than divides us. It's the points, and I know a lot of us are also feeling the same way you're feeling. So then, and you alluded to some of the answer to the next two questions. The next one being, what do you fear most about the next Trump presidency?
I fear like a complete misuse and takeover of the police and whatever the big money wants, whatever Putin wants, right? He's going to get all the information he wants and this and that. And in Washington, we live near cop cities, for one. There's one in Lacey, and King County Sheriff, which is on Muckleshoot Reservation, participates in a lot of the trainings for that. Authoritarian, we need to worry about. That's why I stay focused on our sovereignty. However, I don't know if it'll get that far. I think we're in the midst of a system collapse. So leaning on community and really like our own food sovereignty and those kinds of structures and getting information and healing ourselves within so it can spread without is how we fight this system. The fear is going to feed it, period.
That's right. If we feed the fear without organizing and connecting with one another, then we are doomed to fail. Excellent point. So then on the flip side of that same coin, what do you hope most about the next Trump presidency?
I keep hope in my heart at all times. I don't put my trust in anything of the world. And that can be so hard to walk. It sounds so pretty and fancy. But I just walked through a season where I went through a whole system within my government and found out how truly broken it was. So I don't think I have hope for the people, for my fellow children of God. I have hope. I really have hope for unity. I have a lot of leaders all over Turtle Island back in the late 1800s all had the same vision and prophecy, and it's well documented. And that is a time of two paths, where one is material, colonial world, right? Wars, all this stuff we're stuck in now. And one is the tree of life and unity. And we're at the crossroads of this right now. So that my hope is, it looks messy, but beautiful things are coming.
So I want to just round out that point because I believe there's a lot of truth to that. So you're saying that you believe we are at a precipice between the materialistic downfall of society and the unifying rising or evolution of society. And that you think that this might look messy, but there's a trust in God and trust in the grander plan that it will go the way it's supposed to, which we all hope is the light side and the unified side, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's work that comes with that and there's responsibility. So there's the other half of that prophecy, right? The healing doesn't come unless you heal yourself within. The prophecies are not even welcome in the land until you heal yourself within. And there's a lot that messiness is real. Like we have to do things about that. It starts with addressing your own brokenness.
Right.
Once you have your side of the street clean enough and an understanding of what's going on and you're not operating from a place of ego, but you're spirit guided, that's the message that needs to start in the community before you can get deeper in the context. Yeah.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that because I look at how much progress that we made as a society, relative progress, right? Because we did take a huge step back, but we did make progress as a society in carving out that language that's needed to be able to heal, to just address it. And taking a note from some communities, like you have to start with that awareness. It's an excellent point. And you're right. The amount of work that has been sparked because of this. That's why I created the podcast, right?
Yes, you're not late. You're right on time.
And I'm so glad you say that because I'm relatively hard on myself. This isn't about me, but it's about my journey to this point. And for some time, I was always thinking like, how do I create a platform for people to connect and get the internal healing and also the community building? And for years, I was thinking about it, and this opportunity was like, this is your time. And so it aligns with what you're talking about with spiritual calling and the divine movement in a certain direction. So I believe in those things. And so that's why what you're saying is totally valid, in my opinion. So
yeah, no, truth rings true, period.
Okay. So the next question I have is, what do you believe about the people who voted opposite of you?
Well, I sent you that Maya Angelou thought on those who are so forced to stay stuck in their hate and their ignorance. And I do not want to do her a dishonor. So I'll just reframe it. But it's something that I've understood and believed through the extensive process of my own healing. Like I'm Indigenous. I come from a long line of trauma, right? And a long line of power too, though. But I had a lot to dig up. Those who have not gone through a healing process, something like the 12 steps or whatever way God takes you through it, I think they're willfully ignorant due to comfort. And quite frankly, I feel sorry for them. I think that they are to be watched and monitored as far as like just in general. But I was so quick to cut Trumpers out of my life for so long during the whole 2016 and after. But at the Indian country swing really just blew my mind. And it's shown a light more on the fact that like these people are stuck in the dark and the veil needs to be lifted for them, or like they're just going to fight till the end and it's not going to be good for them, but it's not necessarily good for us. So they are to be watched and monitor and engage, protect yourself and protect your energy because there's darkness working within them.
Yeah. And that's thank you for your perspective on that. One of the things that I've grappled with as a spiritual being and the outcomes of this election is, despite all signs towards the darkness that you're talking about, there's multiple things at play in this existence, right? There's there's economic, there's individual, there's spirit, right? And there's so many layers of our experience here that to believe any principle that exists on one layer is more important than principles on other layers. It just creates, in my opinion, the false comfort that I felt going into the election and was rudely awoken from, right?
I knew going in. I knew he'd probably be here. Yeah, I wasn't that surprised at all. But that explained a lot. And I think a lot of people feel it the way you feel, for sure. Like what Beyonce couldn't do it.
No, but you weren't surprised then.
Because it's spiritual. It's spiritual horror.
Well, and that was just to round out my point is I believe a lot of people who either sat out or who flipped sides to Trump, there was an economic and quote unquote safety related issue for them.
Maybe,
Well,
maybe.
that's
Yeah,
large.
I don't even know because I nothing about his plan is good. If these people are actually reading legislation, like this man
Right.
wants to take every social security from us. That includes VA veteran benefits, that includes laws. I don't know if you know this, but in Indian country, we already don't get civil rights. Sovereigns don't have to follow the Federal Civil Rights Act. They don't have to follow the American with Disability Act either. The only federal applicable law pertaining to that is Title III of the Americans with Disability Act, which was Florida versus paraplegic. Anyway, yeah,
No.
you see, it
Yeah.
seems like it's economic. Our economic is within ourselves, right? And what the real elements of everything are, the core of them is the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional. And that starts within, and then it starts exercising out and creates that effect, right?
Absolutely.
Our economy is ourselves, right? Our energy is our currency. Our thoughts are our currency.
Well, so I 100% agree with that. But like our system is not set up to even recognize that. You know what I mean?
No, nope, it sure ain't. And it sucks. And it's falling apart right now. And it's making everyone's life a living hell. Whether you need to go to a doctor's appointment, whether you're in the middle, whether you're, God forbid, like pregnant, having an ectopic pregnancy in Texas. I don't care if you believe so hard in the Bible that abortion is wrong. Like, they were never supposed to die. It was never supposed to look like this. Like, that's where I don't understand. So I don't know. You could say as a Trump supporter, oh, financially, this is going to work for me, but you don't realize how much you're actually losing. Like all these blue collar people around where I live, like in Enenklaw and stuff that support Trump, their houses are so run down. I've seen them lose their business before they started putting Trump stuff up. So it's the consequential ignorance to themselves. And I don't even know how much I believe on a large scale, like, so what we're told about our own divisiveness. So
You don't like it's almost like it's part of the system which is the colonial system that has found the right and wrong in society when
yeah.
in my
And
opinion.
everyone's just so confused.
Absolutely. And again, there is no kind of blueprint for people, right?
Ever, not in our constitution, not nothing. Federal Indian policy is like the most decrepit, like it's layered in confusion. Just like my military procedures and instructions and all the stuff I had to study for advancement exam for the job I had, which was several hundred pages. None of it made sense. And that was intentional. So they could do whatever they want. And the structure within our sovereignty, we follow the colonial structure. Same thing. Information is not made availability. Codes can apply this. They make rules up as they go. So as a nation, this nation was founded on the Roman Catholic Church principles, period.
Sure.
The doctrine of discovery. We're still living under the foundational principles of the Romans, if you really look at it. Like,
yeah, and so antiquated, right? Like, how is our society, including the concerns about the rights, Christian nationalism, which neither here nor there, but I'm a firm believer that we have technology now that was not present back in those days when those rules were established. And I question how we can continue to abide by those things when our world is fundamentally different. You know what I mean?
they're set up to not work for us, period. And they're just getting more blatant about it. That's why it looks so messy. They were able to really hold the wool over our eyes for so long with these wars and patriotism and things like this. So now we understand that's not what wars are really about or why we started them. Yeah, I mean, if people took the time to even look into the true history of wars and do their own thing and get to where we are, right, as people coming from communities that have been oppressed within the system historically and currently, and here in the future, very rightfully, but just walking through something so loud and looking different in my community, there is a sense where I am afforded white privilege, of course, but my life has also very, very much sucked in terms of racism growing up as a gender native. The rest of my family not looking at it. You've met my mom. She looks native. I don't look at it. And getting my ass kicked in such an ugly way within my own community through their legislation. It's not that scary. And I'm still here. So we can do it.
Thank you for that encouragement.
Don't be afraid. Don't blame the system.
Thank you. Well, thank you for your perspective on that. So the next question is, what is the worst thing about society to you?
The division. Then people stuck within their own ugliness. The unwillingness to just feel emotion. Just division. I hate. It's uncomfortable for me. And it's because I'm so spiritual. And it's all what I thought was anxiety was just deep discomfort with the energies around me, which I now understand.
Say that. Say that.
I hate carrying things that aren't mine.
Yeah, yes, I agree. And that's why I try to be ultra vigilant because I do see how, at least personally, how I impact some people. And I'm like, okay, like I need to it's about like how my energy is coming across. So like, and
totally.
You're super sensitive too. So like, I get that. But point is you said the division.
The fact that a few, the 1% are winning because they've created this game. Right. It's illusion that we're all so divided when we're really not. And sure, ugly parts have come out. I believe that some people are human and have awareness about these ugly parts, and they're holding on to the comforts, like Maya Angelou talked, the grasping comforts of these beliefs.
Of their ignorance.
I think a lot of it, I think there's a lot of walking demonic energy as well in human form. So the division at its core is the simplest way to say that's what I hate the most. But these guys are pulling one over on us.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and we'll, under the Trump presidency, a lot of those folks you're talking about are set to benefit, right?
They did last time. Yeah. I don't know how he thinks he's going to save people money or like why Elon giving $1 million. Like, it's just a joke at this point. It's like the Wizard of Oz. He's the man behind the curtain, but he's out front. And I don't even know if he's human at this point because, like, when you're pushing the grade that much and you're this susceptible, I just feel sorry for him and everyone that's following him, honestly.
Yeah, I hear you there. I do. So what do you believe is one of the reasons that Trump and the largely Republican Congress was elected?
Somebody's pulling the strings. But whether it be Putin or other powers that be, it's just the way it was constructed. At this point, I don't believe the American people have a full voice. There was no resolution from 2016. There was no, this is what we put in place to make sure that Russia won't do it again.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so do you feel you did enough to affect the election in the way you wanted to see it go?
I feel like I did enough to hold space for peace in my community during the election. If I was called to do more, I would, but that wasn't my place then.
Right. No, and I feel that. Yeah. I look over these questions and I realize that these are questions I ask myself, right?
You need to answer them yourself.
I know. I started to the other day and I was like, I need a fresh state of mind to be able to, you know what I mean? So the last question is, what do you want to say to the version of you 4 years in the future?
We did it.
That's right.
That's it.
That's great.
Thank you, God, and praise God. That's what I want to say.
Yeah.
Because Peter was like, ahem, because that's to me.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Don't forget.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
No, that's great.
it.
That's great. I would say that part of your answer indicates that there's hope, that you do have a hope and optimism for the
Yeah.
And you have to, as a spiritual child of God.
It's a muscle. Hope is a cognitive thing. It's not a feeling. Brene Brown just put this out. I'm so glad she did. Because if you feel hopeless, but is that just a word spell? You know what I mean?
No, I know. I saw the same thing you're talking about that Brene Brown put out. Very well said. So thank you, Courtney, again, for being willing to chat and give your perspective.
Thank you for having me. My honor.
Of course. And the closeout is we are all different, but we are also all the same. What matters is we recognize that and we move forward to make a better world for all of us.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for blessing us with the Indigenous language, which a lot of people do not have the privilege of receiving.
Anytime. Yeah, it's a privilege for me as well. All right. Love to you.